Hello there everyone, my name is Lance and welcome back to a brand new video. Today, I'm trying something new, something I've wanted to do for a while now, and that's doing a ranking style video. As many of you know, I just recently completed the NoEnd House series in its entirety. It was a lot of fun, and with the series finished, there's nothing left to do now but give my thoughts on the series as a whole, and rank them from worst to best. Although I should mention, I don't think any of these stories are bad. Some are just better than others. And when I'm talking about these stories, I'm not insulting the author or the voice cast that appeared in my adaptations. This goes without saying, but full spoilers are ahead for the series if you haven't read or heard them yet. With that being said, let's not waste any more time, let's get into it. Number 4. NoEnd House 3. To be honest, this was kind of obvious. I personally feel like this is the lowest one because of two reasons. First being that it was never finished. It's been incomplete for years now, and it's more than likely never going to get a conclusion. People have theorized that Brian Russell, the author of the series, quit this one because of the massive amounts of hate that it got. And honestly, I think that's a possibility with this one. Secondly, and why most people who read this don't like it, is because it tries to explain to us why the house is the way it is. Now, I'm not completely against the idea, it's just the idea they went for just fell flat. The idea of Peter and his family being warlocks or something just wasn't the best way to explain why the house acts the way it does. It was kinda disappointing. That and also the character of Natalie just felt like she came from out of nowhere and being the sister of Peter who just randomly shows up without any rhyme or reason. But she was a decent character as the series progressed. That and we never got to see any of the NoEnd House shenanigans aside from David trying to enter the NoEnd House. So yeah, number 4 is NoEnd House 3. Number 3. NoEnd House 2. The original sequel. The reason why it's number 3 is simple. The story just feels like a rehash of the first story. The only difference being that the protagonist is female and the trials through the doors are different. Let's also not forget that cliffhanger of an ending with Maggie becoming the management. I guess, realistically, there isn't much you can do with a sequel to something like NoEnd House except the same concept. That doesn't make the story bad, but in a way, it does make it predictable. Since we see that same structure play out in Story 1 about 9 Rooms of Hell, there's really not much you can do. On the plus side, we do get a decent main character in Maggie, and admittedly, it was cool seeing Peter get some development. And him being a surprise villain actually helped fill in a plot hole NoEnd House 1 had, but we'll get to that later. Number 2. Return to NoEnd. Yes, I know this story isn't technically canon, but it gave us a finale that most people who read or listened to it would say that it is canon. With NoEnd House 3 being left without an ending, Mr. Creepypasta and Barnabas Demos, I hope I'm saying your name right, stepped in to write their own concluding chapter, and, to be honest, I feel like this is the perfect way to cap off the trilogy. Yes, admittedly it does follow the same formula as in the previous installments, but it did it in a way where it was much more epic, and the stakes had been raised. Natalie's given more depth, and her surprise villain turn did catch me off guard when I first heard this. Plus, the ending with David choosing to become management while being trapped in the house with his girlfriend was both sad, but happy in its own special way. It really does affect the ending quite significantly. All in all, a very fitting finale, and the trials that David goes through in the house from the meat locker scene to the pool scene are actually quite nice. So yes, number 2 is Return to NoEnd. It's obvious, isn't it? By process of elimination, number 1 goes to the original NoEnd House story. A lot of scary haunted house stories use the premise of surviving the night inside for a cash prize, and NoEnd House 1 is no exception, but does it in a different way. Whereas it's a completion to see if you can make it through all 9 rooms while progressively getting more sinister as they go on. Obviously a metaphor for the 9 circles of hell. Very similar to what was used in Dante's Inferno. This story is the perfect representation of a psychological horror, as each room David travels through pushes his sanity to the brink until he breaks. When he's going through the house, you feel like you're traveling through it with him, so the listener gets the full effect of what David is going through. And David himself is a very well done character. Even though he doesn't speak much in the story, it's told from a first-person perspective, and you gradually understand who he is as a person and how he's feeling when he's psychologically tormented in the house. Remember, we're seeing the house through David's own eyes, so as he goes through the house, we go through it with him. The ending also showed that the NoEnd House is also true to its name, being that you can never truly escape it. Now, about that plot hole. As I said before, the ending showed that you cannot escape the house once you enter. But Peter tells David about the place, explaining that he tried to go through the house but failed. But that begs the question, how did Peter escape? Now, I know what you're thinking. It explains what happened in NoEnd House 2, where Peter was revealed to be the management the whole time. And while yes, that is true, that's only revealed in the sequel. And if you never read the sequel, chances are you wouldn't have known that. Plus, the author probably never had any intention of writing a sequel in the first place and wanted it to be a simple, one-and-done story. Which, by itself, it works great, if it was left to stand on its own. But despite all of that, I still love this story so much. It is, by far, one of my absolute favorite creepypastas of all time, and I just can't get enough of it. So, yes, number 1 is NoEnd House 1. And that is my list for the NoEnd House series. Do you agree with me? Would your list be different from mine? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you want me to do more ranking style videos in the future, let me know. If you're curious about checking out the series, I've linked all the stories down below so you can hear them all from beginning to end and you can give your own thoughts. With that being said, stay spooky everyone, and have a great night.